drive to work or we sit down. So we're doing lots of hours of sitting. That means we're in this position a lot, and that means we can get pretty tight and jacked up through this part of the body. We want to spend some time addressing this area, opening it up, making sure we can hit full hip extension, because some nasty things happen when we don't have the ability to access good hip range. It can lead to, like I was saying, a bit of knee discomfort, using your back overloading a little bit more when we can't fully extend the hip. So a quick little test that I'll run people through, Thomas test. We get people to sit on something high here, butt on the edge, hanging in, hug the knee into the chest, and we just look to see where this goes. If we're up in the air here, we're really tight and jacked up. If this quad is super tight, we're going to be hanging out here. What we want to see is just a hanging leg with our back flat at about 90 degrees, not sitting up in the air here as well. So we can have a look at both sides. And if we are really tight, we've got more work to do. If we're not too bad, you're still going to get some benefit out of this. So first things first, we're going to spend a bit of time addressing some of the anterior hip muscles. So we've got our TFL, tensor fasciae latae. It's a hip flexor that sits at the front here. If you flex and move your leg like so, it's that muscle that's going to be bulging at the front of the hip. It attaches to the ITB, iliotibial band. A lot of people have heard of that, and they say I have a tight ITB. Can't really have a tight ITB. It's a piece of connective tissue, but what we can have is some high resting tone in some of the muscles that it originates from. So your glutes at the back here, TFL at the front, both run into where the ITB comes down onto that lateral knee component. So getting a trigger ball into this area can be pretty nasty, but also can have some really good benefits for relieving some of that lateral knee tightness and sometimes knee pain as well. Grabbing a ball, we want to try and find this area, lay down on the ground, and the analogy I give people is we're trying to peel it off the bone. So find the spot, really dig in. We're going to get down, roll to the side here, pin it in. When you get the area, you'll definitely know about it. And we want to spend some time rotating side to side, just rolling over the ball here. Imagine we're peeling the muscle off the bone. When we find it, big breath in. Pressure our leg down so the muscle tenses up, and then as we exhale, imagine the muscle melting over the ball there. Find a new little area, again, big breath in, tension the ball, big breath out, relax. If we need to add a little bit in here, we can start to add a bit of internal, external rotation. Just searching for new areas there, really getting some nasty gritty spots. For those of you who do a lot of cycling or running, you're going to be pretty tight here, so good to spend a bit of time. So we'll go about 2 minutes there. Flip onto the other side. I'm going to grab that ball, get into that area. Again, rolling, it's front and side. So we want to try and get in this diagonal area. If we cut that leg into a quarter there, down through this area at the front in that position. Again, once you find the spot, you'll definitely know about it. Pin, big breath in. Exhale, imagine that muscle melting over the ball as you're going there. Keep searching for new areas, big breath in, tense the muscle, pressure the leg into the ground so we can get it to fire up, and then breathe out, get everything to relax there. Big breath in, tense, and big exhalation again. Again, about 2 minutes in that area. Next thing that we want to do is we're just going to get the foam roller. This one here, we're going to then go in 3 portions here. So we're going to go medially, a little bit more on the inside of the leg, front on, really get into that rec fem medial middle quad muscle, and then we're going to go into lateral quad, vastus lateralis, and even peel a little bit on the outside and get a bit of that lateral hammy. So find the roller, get yourself into a position where we can support our body weight, and we're just going to roll from the front of the hip down into that quad, outside of the knee, slowly rolling down again here. When you find those nasty spots, I just want you to get a bit of cross friction, really just trying to get those nasty spots in the quad. Might feel like a little bit of rope in there when you get the good areas. And then for a few extra points, try and get a hamstring curl, so heel up towards the butt, pull back down, rotate side to side again. Really just trying to loosen up. That's probably the worst spot for me there. Curl up, big breath in. Exhale as you come back down, just trying to relax as much as you can. So then we'd slide over, get onto the front of the quad here, usually not as tender an area. Do a few passes slowly as it goes. We want to imagine like we're wringing out a towel here. We're not trying to start a fire with the roller by going too quickly. And then a little bit more on the inside of the quad, getting into the VMO, medial quad muscle. Again, if you find a nasty spot, we then want to be doing the flex extend on that knee. So we do about 2 minutes there. Onto the other side, we'll be going through the same thing. Starting at the front of the hip, slowly rolling through. Again, we usually find that the outside of the quad is the worst area. So this is going to be where you're spending most of that time there. Slowly rolling through. You find that gristly bit, you can go a little bit back, into the side, move on again. So everyone's going to be individual where you're finding these tight spots. Just search for it, slowly up and down, pin it, a little bit of side friction, and then pin again, and then go through a hammy curl, slowly moving through that range. If you need to hit a really nasty spot, big breath in, breathe out, relax, trying to get all those muscles to relax as we go, melting over the roller. Imagine that as you exhale. Then we go onto the front of the quad again, starting at the front of the hip, slowly going through. And then we'd go on that medial side. Rightio, so now I've done a good job at addressing some of that anterior hip tightness, smashing out the quads, relieving some of that tension that we get, build up for a lot of work, a lot of kilometers, a lot of miles into the legs. That's the first point. We want to release the muscles that are overactive and really tight and doing a lot of work for us. And then we want to do some stretch work as well. So I like something softer under the knee here. The goal for this one is to get our knee as close into the wall as we can. And then bring this front leg up. So we want to try and get ourselves back in. If we're in this position and we're getting jammed up in our back, or our knees uncomfortable, or we're cramping in our hammy, or we just have no control over this position whatsoever, we just slide our knee out a little bit to start with and get into a position where you can squeeze the glute, lock the position down, breathe in that position as well, because if you can't breathe in a position, you don't really own that position. If you can't tense muscles in a position, the body doesn't trust you there. Let's find a position where we can pulse in, stick into some of this front of the hip, sink back, get a little bit more quad, and then over time, get to the point where we can get that knee as close in, still try and flex the glute, squeeze the butt, drive the hips down while we're squeezing the glute here, rotating side to side, coming back in, trying to get our shoulders back on towards the wall. You should be getting a pretty solid stretch down the front of the hip, front of the quad here, opening up that hip extension, improving on the Thomas test if that's something that you struggled with earlier. So we're going to spend about 90 seconds to 2 minutes depending on how tight you are. And then we're going to flip over, try the other side here. Same thing, try and get the knee as close into the wall as you can. Really flex the glute, big breath in. As you exhale, try and get things to relax. Trying to get those shoulders back towards the wall. Trying to squeeze the glute, pulsing forward, getting into a bit more of that anterior hip, TFL. And then pulsing back in, feeling that quad stretch as well at the front there. Again, if that's too intense, just slide yourself away from the wall slightly and get into a position where you can get a solid stretch but not feel like something's going to snap. We don't want the alarm bells going off in the body too much, getting that sympathetic nervous system online too much. We want a solid stretch, but something that we can breathe into and hold for the time. 90 seconds to 2 minutes, longer if you need it. There we go, guys. That's mobility session number 1. Let us know what you think. It's going to be really key to opening up the hips, spending a lot of time in the saddle. If you're running, sitting a lot, if you're generally pretty active, these areas are going to be really tight. So yeah, give it a go.